So we're back with Don't Mess with Jim, and this episode again is brought to you by Isuzu. I've got one now. It's parked out the front of Wolfpack. It is sick. That's what the cool kids say. I'm driving it around Wales last week, and I look cool as is. I'm not swearing. Cool as shit. I'm swearing. So this is brought to you by Isuzu. Enjoy. A lot of talk this week around the Six Nations and Sky Sports and Amazon and the game potentially going behind a paywall. The big question is that going to kill the game of rugby union in Great Britain and Ireland as we know it? Yeah, I think it will. I've had a lot of time to think about this and digest it, right? Now, I'm in both camps here. I work for an online media platform in RugbyPass. Most of the stuff I do is online. I work for BT Sport, which is behind a paywall. I enjoy other sports that are behind paywalls. The Guinness Pro 14 is on Premier Sports. I love UFC, BT Sport, but you also have to pay for subscriptions off the back of that. You need to pay a pay-per-view. But for me, rugby, the romance around the game is very different, I think, to other sports. Now, football, we know that money makes that game go round. I just think rugby's already behind a paywall, right? So the Premiership is on BT Sport. Premier Sports own the rights to the Guinness Pro 14. The autumn tests live with Sky Sports. Come Six Nations time, come the World Cup time, it's free. So the way that rugby is growing, right, is we need more fans, but we also need more participation for the game to grow. Yes, we need money to come into the game. Of course we do, because we're still a relatively new sport in the grand scheme of things. So when I'm thinking about this, my initial thing was like, okay, it might go behind a paywall. That might just happen. And we deal with it. And it's easy for me to say, right? So I'm working in the media, things are going well. I pay £100 for Sky a month. It's ridiculous when you actually start delving deep into it. I'll get BT Sport. I get Premier Sports off the back of that. Okay, all's jolly. I work in the media. I need to know what I'm doing. But for your average punter and your average fan, why in the world are you going to buy Sky to watch 2 months of rugby if you're a casual fan? You're not. You're just not going to do that. Now, I start to delve a little bit deeper into other sports that have done this, right? So the big one being Formula One. So Formula One was free. Used to watch Formula One loads when I was growing up, like Nigel Mansell, Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, all of these. Used to love Formula One. Then it goes behind a paywall. And I think naturally you just kind of fall off the wayside, don't you? Because I didn't have Sky at the time, didn't need to have Sky, and you just stop watching. You see the highlights are on social media. Great. But I lost my Saturday for the practice and Sunday for the Grand Prix. I missed it. I'm not a cricket fan, but they did the same in cricket as well. But when I was looking at some of the stats around the Formula One, who went from free to air to pay TV, the audience crashed by 18.3%. Right, so that was over the the 10 years or whatever they had. So that's a massive drop in terms of the audience. Right, there's some crazy figures out there. So for the England-France game, the first game of the Guinness Six Nations this year, 9.2 million people watched that game. It was free, right? So you compare that to the England-New Zealand game, and there's been a lot of talk. Listen to Brian Moore, made a really good point around this. Brian Moore said, you'd think England versus New Zealand in the autumn tests, the two best teams in the world would be one of the most watched games of rugby of the year. No, 1.5 million. So you don't need to see or be a mathematician to realise that 8 million people, arguably, is a lot of people that are not watching that England-New Zealand game compared to watching the England-France game. That's a lot of people, right? And I just think that many people not watching, and that's an England game. You forget about Wales, all right? And you forget about Scotland. I'm not sure Ireland is as affected over there because the rights work differently, as they definitely do in France. Wales, right? Working class country that love rugby. I was there last week. I was talking about it with James Hook. I was in Port Talbot overlooking the coal mines. I was with Shane Williams as well. Working class guys who have grown up with rugby, watching the Six Nations on TV, not having to worry about Sky and satellite and subscriptions, and their families love it. It's like my families, right? So my father-in-law They don't watch rugby. They watch the Six Nations. They're like, oh, who's this Mario Itoje or whatever his name is? Like, he's big and powerful, isn't he? Well, it's Mario Itoje, but yeah, of course he is. Oh, Johnny Wilkinson, isn't he a good-looking bloke? Have no real idea about what's going on, and 3, 4, 5 phase attack, chip over, kick, maul to the corner, manipulation at the maul that goes over. Is he offside? Who knows? So your casual fans are the ones that are missing out. But for me, it's the kids coming through. And there's a fine line, right? I work in online. I'm a big believer this is going out on YouTube. YouTube's free, all right? It's going out on RugbyPass on the website. It's free. But this is what lives around it. The heartbeat of the game, is watching the game, is watching the build-up, is listening to the commentary. You know, I think about my experiences of listening to Bill McLaren, you know, Doddy Weir, Rob Wainwright, Dean Richards, Martin Johnson. And these memories live with me, like Scott Quinnell. Do you know what I mean? I get goosebumps talking about these people, like the ones that I used to watch growing up that I idolised. Now, that could still happen behind a paywall, but the likelihood is that your casual fan who might be interested, might not, but because it's the Six Nations and it's on TV, they're going to be the ones that miss out, and the money behind it as well. So I'm a little bit split. I would be very interested to see what the masses think, because normally what you do is you normally see the negative stuff that surrounds it. Where's the upside to it? Well, the money. You know, is it the 300 million that they're talking about that's going to be invested into the game? Where's that money going? Is that a lot of money in the grand scheme of things? Now, we saw that in cricket. So cricket did the same thing. And the money went through the roof. The revenue was really high and everything was great. But I think they had a 30% drop-off in participation. Participation being the big thing. In order to grow the game of rugby, we need more people. We need more boys, more girls, people taking up the game, players taking up the game later, because they've watched the Six Nations match and they're like, I can do that. And they want to take up, they go to a local rugby club and the grassroots is thriving. I don't know. I am a little bit mixed with it all. I understand it from the pay-per-view side. In America, that's what they do. You subscribe to UFC, you buy a UFC pass, NFL pass, NBA pass. So you have all these categories. But for me, like RugbyPass do the same thing in Asia. I think it's a great idea. So in the UK, I think if you like rugby, there should be a rugby channel that you can pay £20 a month, okay? You know, whatever it is, and you get every single rugby game. For that, all the content, all the news, all the stats, all the games, right? And you know that you're paying £20 and that you like it, okay? But then there should be an option around the Six Nations to dip in and dip out. I'm happy to sit at home and pay for a movie on Sky or Netflix if I really, really want to watch it. So I get that part of it, but to put it just behind a paywall, I don't know. I think it could have big, big ramifications, and I don't know where the game's going at the minute. You know, CVC have invested a lot of money. They're an investment company, an equity company. Do they care about rugby? I don't know. I've not spoken to anyone there. It might be good to chat to them and see how much they do care about rugby. Is it a short-term fix? Are they doing that because they want to grow the game long-term? I don't know who's making decisions. But, you know, if you've got Brett Gosper at the helm, if World Rugby have to sign this off, they'd be crazy, in my opinion, to sign it off. Let's just see. Let's just see where the next few years go. Keep it on BBC, keep it on ITV, give a little bit to Sky, BT Sport own the Prem, Channel 4 do a little bit, and, you know, chatting to the guys at Channel 4, apparently the viewing numbers were 5 times the Champions Cup final on Channel 4 than it was on BT Sport, because it was free. Of course. You know, a lot of people would be pissed off about paying a subscription, principally. So, I work for BT, it's a great product. I've not done anything for Sky. You know, I'd like to. Sky do a really good product as well. I do a lot for Premier Sports. These are behind paywalls. They are, but I think as someone in the media, as a commentator, but also as a fan, it'd be great if it was free. Wouldn't it? Wouldn't life be great if it was free? But rugby needs it. Rugby does not need to be any more expensive than it already is.